The consensus at that point was the only way to get like accurate understanding of what a person is thinking, the only way to do that is by drilling a hole inside the skull, putting a chip inside, putting a sensor right within the activity spot, and then you understand what's going on, which is like kind of a morbid future. Like you don't want to have like a reality where your kids are like, hey, I want like to be like as good as the other kid who has like this superhuman capability, and the only way to do that is to have like a hole drilled in their skull. It was like very motivating for us to figure out if at all there's like a path to be able to do it non-invasively that just like changes the entire trajectory of how the technology evolves.
Hey, Rahul, Atmadeep, thanks a lot for coming. It's really good to have you here.
Thanks for inviting us.
Let's start off by saying what Sabi is.
Sabi is making a cap, a beanie. It's identical to a regular baseball cap or a regular beanie that you would be wearing. And the whole idea is that it's a completely different way to interact with the world, people around you, technology around you, your environment, something that just hasn't happened so far in the technology. Like EEG or these neurotech devices, they've been around for the last 100 years, and people, scientists, researchers, engineers, everyone has wanted a capability to be able to talk without just being limited to words. And what we're trying to do is be able to bring that into a wearable cap that doesn't look awkward, that doesn't look different. You can just go out and like walk with it or like run with it. And that allows you to just communicate via your thoughts. So that's what Sabi is doing. One of the key things that we wanted Sabi to be all about is to feel very human, something that you can like actually bring in your lifestyle as a fabric that you wear instead of, a phone that's like very plastic or aluminum or glass, which are like not the materials that you want to wear on yourself. You want to like maybe have it in your pocket, but we want it to be extremely human, extremely earthy, extremely grounded. And that's what like is reflected a lot in the word Sabi as well. Sabi comes from this Japanese phrase, wabi sabi. And Sabi specifically means beauty that comes with age. And that's sort of very similar to the relationship that we strive to build with the people who wear it. Given that it's supposed to be learning your neural patterns, your habits, and things that you do, and gets better at both understanding you and how you live your life and how it can help you, but also how your brain works, how you think, and how we can make you more curious, more ambitious, more happy. And so this is more of a long-term relationship that comes with time, and that's what Sabi is supposed to be all about.
Awesome. I mean that is a lot, and is a very compelling vision. But I guess I'm really fascinated to dig into how this is possible, given it's a kind of a cutting edge thing. But perhaps first, could we talk about like how you got here? How did you two end up tackling this problem?
Yeah, I think both of us had been obviously spending a lot of time, and like we were both in the same college, right? So he majored in CS. I was doing math and electrical engineering, and both of us were like very excited about like building something together. And he has spent a lot of his time in like making models for like satellite imagery, and I spent some time in like making autonomous flying drones. So both of us had like a lot of like sync ups, and like things that we were working on were like both cross domain. And so we always had like all of these conversations where we were like trying to figure out what would it look like if you had devices and technology that truly understood you or just had like a better intelligence. And this was way before like even transformers came about. This was early 2015, 2016, 2017 is when all of this era of deep learning started like ramping up. So we had been like playing around with the earliest versions of LSTM and like neural networks. And also like with all of this data that is like now very, very similar to the work that we're doing, which is like time series data. How do you have like different time-stamped values, which to a person or like even on paper don't make any sense. They're like just values with like this timestamp, but they can help you predict weather, they can help you predict stock markets, they can help you predict what a person is thinking. And nobody imagined that all of these things would happen, but we'd been like at it for quite a lot of time. In college, after like doing all of these things, Atmadeep spent some time at Harvard, which I'm sure he's going to talk about. And I spent some time at Stanford, and there was like a very harmonious intersection. I'll just wait for like Atmadeep to talk about it.
at college, the first company that I was working with was the space tech company. They're building a constellation of nanosatellites with this specific kind of camera called hyperspectral camera. They're trying to kind of monitor the Earth with like an extreme amount of detail in terms of like spectral depth. That is when I met Rahul. He was roommates with the co-founder of that company. So yeah, we kind of gelled together. We had like very similar interests. We tried to figure out what we can do around like different applications of AI. So we didn't work together at the time. He was working on a different company, and I went on to do like a research internship at Harvard. That's where I got my start with like neuroscience data. The project that I was working on there is something called connectomics. So we would make a 3D segmentation model that at that time was a 3D convolution. So it's like in a normal image, you would have a convolution filter going like in 2 dimensions. This would go in 3 dimensions across the entire thing, and it would segment out different complex cells. In this case, it was the neurons in that brain tissue. And we would kind of get a mesh that would help us understand how the neuron exists. The idea here is that the 3D, when you take like a 3D scan of the brain at electron microscope resolution, even a 1 mm cube of brain tissue can be as much as in petabytes. So you can't really run the entire thing to a deep learning model and get results. Like especially at that time, you had like 16 GB VRAM and 1 GPU, so petabytes is not possible. So what we did is we did an adaptive moving kind of model that would start with a fixed window. Like you would click on one cell and you would ask it that, hey, I'm seeing this cell here in that plane. Trace it out for me. Like, where does this cell go? You would start from one point and the window would kind of trace this neuron out completely across this massive petabyte scale data set, and it would find like the entire mesh of that neuron along the trace that it followed. That gave me my first start into neuroscience data. Like it was extremely fascinating, like the sheer amount of complexity inside any brain. Like we work with a bunch of different tissues as well. It's not just human, like monkeys, mice, those kinds of things. And the sheer amount of complexity, the amount of cells that exist in like the tiniest of scans that you can take. And like we still don't know what's going on there, like at the single cell resolution, like what is actually happening when two neurons connect, and like what is the process here from which consciousness arises. So we wanted to kind of get deeper into this, essentially the semantic space of the human brain. Like we can do that for deep learning models, but for humans, we still don't know where different concepts exist, how concepts flow when you have like an intention. Like if I want to pick this cup up, like what is the flow of things that happened in my brain to let my hand go here and pick it up? To do that, we needed like a neuroimaging modality that is kind of both portable and it's like consumerizable. So that's how we.
What were the scans you were going off of? They were like some sort of like what kind of machines did you have to be in, and how long did it take, and like how?
Oh yeah, so the work that I did at Harvard, that was it was not on live people.
Yeah.
The brain would have to be dead.
Yeah, so the petabyte scans are like this very high fidelity thing on a still object.
Yeah.
And so you're now like, all right, I need to go looking for something that works in basically real time.
Exactly. So the thing with connectomics is that it's static tissue. It does not look at the functional aspect of neurons. Yeah. It just shows you how complex and how beautiful the structure is inside. It's not a live brain that is doing something. It's a dead brain. You would take like a tiny tissue and pass it through an electron microscope, and you would get like a static view.
So you can really see the routing inside the brain, but not the activity.
You'd see the wiring patterns. You don't know exactly how those neurons are firing, what they're doing, how they're changing chemically as they do different activities. So for that, you need a functional imaging, but functional imaging can't get to that resolution. You can't really like take out a single neuron out of someone's brain and trace it out. So you have to look at the brain at a much higher level. So what invasive companies do is that they put something on the surface of the brain that gives you like lesser resolution than single cell, but it gives you to some extent, like you can get the entire column of activity that the brain has in that area. Our idea is that that would not get you like a very high consumer adoption, because the brain is like extremely fragile tissue.
Is it also like localized to where it actually invades the brain?
Yes,
To some extent?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's localized. The brain tissue is fragile. It won't like you'll eventually develop some like the long term safety of that. We don't know. Do you develop scar tissue? Do you like lose some abilities? We don't know that. So our idea was to never invade the brain at all. Like what can you do without going deep inside the tissue? That is always a constraint that we have held ourselves to. So post my research at Harvard, I worked with this group at Princeton who they were trying to actually decode what a person was seeing using fMRI scans. So fMRI is not a direct measurement of brain activity or even brain structure. It measures the blood flow in your brain in response to different stimulus. So let's say I'm looking at a certain image, like I have a laptop screen in front of me, I'm being shown different images. As I process that image in my brain, different parts of my brain would kind of activate, and in response to that activation, they would have localized increase in energy demands. And because the energy demand in that localized area is rising, the blood would rush there to feed those neurons, sort of. So if you can understand at a fine resolution the blood flow structure in your brain, you can sort of see a second order effect of your brain activity. Like these portions had spikes in your blood flow. That means that the neurons that were there, they did more work than the portions that did not have a spike. So using this second order effect, we were able to build deep learning models that could actually understand what a person was seeing. We could decode with extremely high fidelity the exact image that a person was looking at. So that
this is remarkable in its own right so far, right? But that fMRI is like, that's like I'm laying down with like the thing.
Exactly.
Like I'm in a machine and the going in my head.
Exactly.
Okay. But as you mentioned, it's like a second order thing, not actual brain activity, but it was promising enough because just with the second order effect in a still thing. So that led you to look for something.
Yep, that triggered the entire like discovery process, because that made sure that the consensus at that point was the only way to get like accurate understanding of what a person is thinking. The only way to do that is by drilling a hole inside the skull, putting a chip inside, putting a sensor right within the activity spot, and then you understand what's going on, which is like kind of a morbid future. Like you don't want to have like a reality where your kids are like, hey, I want like to be like as good as the other kid who has like this superhuman capability, and the only way to do that is to have like a hole drilled in their skull. And so it was like very motivating for us to figure out if at all there's like a path to be able to do it non-invasively that just like changes the entire trajectory of how the technology evolves. So overall, we like started thinking about it as a compression problem. Like at a single neuron level, understanding all the activity would like take enormous amount of resources, and that would be like a really, really hard undertaking. But we don't need that. It turns out if you have like a high order view of the entire brain, and given that most of the activity is a consequence of aggregation of how neurons are getting activated, and there are like very specific correlations that you can find even from the outside of the brain, the fact that you can do that changes everything, because now you can use that information, and then it's like all the downstream of however you communicate, however you interact with your environment, with technology, you can just like understand that, right? So the implication of what you can do in the world by just understanding the outward non-invasive signal of the brain is like massive. So that was like sort of the motivation. And I had been doing a lot of this work specifically in my thesis, where like we would take EMG signals from athletes and we would be able to predict with time what their fatigue levels are. And for athletes, that's a really big and important thing, because nobody wants to overtrain, nobody wants to injure, but you want to get to the limit of your body. And again, it's like very hard to understand from inside, but just non-invasively, you could measure the biopotential of the muscle group and get a fairly good amount of idea of, hey, you're going to be getting injured right now, stop right now. And that just ensures you don't waste your time with the injury, you still train to the limit, and you get to the best outcome for the race day. And so what we'd seen was time series data works, deep learning works, non-invasive signal work. Non-invasive signals are good enough to decode really, really powerful things. And there's a whole idea of like foundation models that is going to get created over here. And as long as the scaling laws hold true, we have like a way to like change the world, because the outcomes are like, we have like this whole line of technology that didn't exist so far, but just now it became possible to make it. So we were very excited, and we had been like thinking about how to like best structure this technology, like what exactly are the levers of making it happen. And a lot of insights from Atmadeep had, given that he had been involved like in like this constellation of nanosatellites to map what's going on the Earth, which is in a way a very identical problem to like brain reading, because exactly that's what we're doing. We're like a constellation of sensors from the outside trying to localize what's the source of a neural activity. And if you like get really, really good at it, because in the brain there are dedicated spots which are like dedicated for specific concepts, you understand what a person is thinking just by finding correlations of neural activity. So the idea is that you really want a high density constellation of sensors, and we started looking at all the sensors that were out there.
Yeah, so like high level at this point, like you have this intuition that this is a data problem because you have a background of turning data into actual like insight, and like you have the directional examples of like data that was useful enough. Okay. So back to, and so then,
and second story is like, how do you sense it? Like, what is the sensing mesh? And that idea came from this constellation of satellites. And we started looking at, okay, what are all the sensors that are available today? What does magnetic sensing look like? What does blood flow sensing look like? What does optical sensing look like? What does biopotential sensing look like? And it turns out that there's only one way that you can use to have like real-time sensing. Like there's magnetic sensing and biopotential sensing, but magnetic fields of brain are like so feeble compared to Earth's magnetic field. So unless you like actively correct for it or have like a shielded room, it doesn't yield to something helpful. And so it had like too many hurdles. But right next to it was biopotential sensing, which gives you the understanding of electrical activity of neurons near instantly. It's not perfectly instant because like you still need to wait for aggregation of neural activity to be able to capture that from the outside, but it's near instant, except that they are horrible today. Like the biopotential sensors today are like really, really bad. Even in like medical settings and even like research settings, like the entire stack of sensing is just not good. And it's driven by, hey, how is the sensing actually happening, to what the electrical circuit signal chain looks like, and then what is the density of the sensing that's available. And so we did a whole profile, and we realized today how biosensing happens in medical conditions is via a gel-based gold-plated sensor that would be placed on a scalp. The person might have to go bald to make sure that the sensor gets as close to the scalp as possible. And even then, it's not that good because the resistance is not low enough. And so even like stray noises with very little electrical, very little like current, so even like picoamperes of current multiplied by high enough resistance would lead to potential changes that would be in the, so essentially that adds to a lot of noise in like the meaningful biopotential ranges that you want to have for your sensor. So unless you get your sensing resistance or impedance extremely low, you don't get a good outcome. And the way how it happens mechanically in like all of these settings in medical and research settings is the person has to go bald, they need to scrub their head with like adhesive, scrubbing gels that would peel off the dead skin. And even then you have like kilo ohms of resistance, and that multiplied by picoamperes of stray currents that just leads to like current potential changes which are not good enough to measure biopotential.
And so like, I guess, I mean, just to make sure I'm following it. So we're narrowing in on another bottleneck here, like, which is like they're like, all right, so magnets don't work, electrical signals do, but there are too high noise to be, first of all, fit the form factor you want. And second of all, I think where the other way you're headed is that people assumed at that level of noise, state of art meant that you could not have enough of them.
Exactly. So, so the understanding is that the limits of our academic evaluation of biopotentials is limited because the sensors that are available in the market just don't have enough of low noise capability. And even the ones that do require like such heavy, bulky setups that they would take up the entire room and they don't fit inside a cap, and they would need a person to go bald or like have like all of these gel set up. So it's not really at the place where you can like take it into a home and like a person can just be sitting in the room with a cap and like plug it into a computer. That just doesn't work. And so we realized that there's a fundamental missing invention here, that one, does not require conductive gel. Two, can support extremely high density meshes, given that more dense your mesh is, the better your localization becomes. And three is the signal chain that you have and even the sensor that you have needs to be so low noise that you get like much more meaningful information that you're just losing out today, but also you get like a full spectrum of information of like all frequencies that matter. And that was something that we also learned from the satellite thing. They had specifically taken the bet to go for hyperspectral images because it was like very, very relevant that when you're doing like sensing from far out, if you don't capture all frequencies, you just like lose out on information. And how neurons react is that they have a spread of frequent spectral ranges, where like lower spectral ranges definitely currently correlate with low attention states. And when you're actively thinking, all the information is in high frequency ranges, which have lower amplitudes. So they're more susceptible to noise and they're harder to capture. So that's the fourth point, which is that you need to be able to capture hyperspectral or high frequency biopotentials. And all of these are unsolved problems.
Yeah, this
these
seems
are
like a lot of constraints for
yeah, you're like, okay, fine, deep learning works. That's amazing. It's the first time it
And
works.
also there's this thing in concert where, I don't know, this might be a presumption, but like what you fix the density problem and you fix the noise problem in isolation, but then they compound once you put a bunch of them next to each other because they might interfere, right?
Exactly. Interference, by the way, is like an easy problem because models can just figure out. So there's always like some distinct information, no matter how close the electrodes are present. And there's like some academic proof now that going up on spatial resolution has like a scaling capability for like neural decoding. So
maybe it's like at this point where you had an intuition from somewhere that much better EEG was possible. Like where did that? Was there directional signal somewhere, or are you just like, this was what needs to be solved right now, so we're going to figure this out?
It was both, I think. It was both. So I have an electrical engineering background, and I could like profile the signal and kind of see, okay, fine. The noise floor for all the signals that we're getting is like high enough that it just doesn't let you get important information. And like when you like experiment with like multiple devices, you would see, okay, fine, this one device specifically has this noise floor, which is lower. And then as a consequence of that, you're getting like a better outcome in decoding, just because this part of the information is now that you have access to. So it gave you the access to this intuition that, okay, fine, these all variables, if you like modulate in the right way, you might be able to get exactly the right information. And then you can like stage the experiments with like different kind of signal chains and figure out, okay, fine, this is the information that I exactly wanted. Now I have it. And thank God that helps me like decode all the important information that I have. So you do all of these experiments by staging different kind of signal chains. And then you get to the outcome that, okay, fine, if all of this came together in a small chip that's like 1 millimeter footprint, I can fit in like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of those sensors. And then my problem is like totally different, which is how do I make sure that they're powered by a wearable battery, they're not too heavy, they're not generating enough heat. And so then all of those come down to engineering constraints. And thank God the stars lined up in the right way, which are like really, really hard. We landed in the same sort of like order of magnitude constraints where like if you like push hard enough, take a few months, and within a year get down to a sensor which solves all of these key problems that you want to have. Extremely low SNR, being able to do in a comfortable form factor, and we're going to talk more about biosensing soon enough, and be able to pack so much that they have like 3 orders of magnitude low power consumption than a regular biopotential sensor. So you can fit in a lot more and not get to a heating outcome. And you can like drive it with a wearable battery.
Yeah.
All of those finally got us to the point that, okay, fine. Now we're at a point where we can like talk about, hey, it's going to be in a cap. And now it's a future to build.
Yeah.
So that's essentially
and clearly before that, like how much, like along the way, you're also, your guidance is not like, it's interesting because it's both, you have some sense of like good enough in terms of like these hardware parameters, but then you also have a prediction about like what you can solve at scale with software.
And enough data. We got like very strong.
So like there has to be some loop in this process where you're kind of like, all right, we got it. Like where you're tweaking, there's a sweet spot where the both kind of come together, right?
Yeah, I think how we like figured out was that, hey, the real answers are going to come from empirical outcomes, and theoretically you can only go so far. And but theoretically as well, if you can like figure out a predictable like sort of scaling law, you get to a very interesting outcome. And so we were able to like have like a set of volunteers who we could like work with and record neural data and like have like very standardized experiments. And you can figure out, okay, fine, these kind of parameters, as long as you go further on, give you like a very predictable scaling law. And at sometimes there might be some plateauing, but you can still predict that as long as you go further and further, this is what the plateauing is going to look like, and this is where you're going to end up with. And yeah, that's basically given us the confidence to like keep on investing. And thankfully for us, it seems like the field is like just so underexplored that the further we've gone, the further we've been able to see that, hey, it works. And so that just allows us to bring it all together.
Okay. All right. So, but there's still like another, you have the sensor and they still have the hard problem of making a device effectively.
That's hard. That's hard. We do have some prototypes that are like working now in our labs, and we're like fairly confident that we'll be able to bring it out to the hands of users. But yeah, it's hard because even after you have all the sensors, even if you have like all the algorithms,
it's a design problem too.
Yeah. It's a design problem. It's a lifestyle problem. It's a fashion problem. And then it has to work with all demographics. And you want to be able to like market your product in a way where people are able to like just use it and have the right expectations. And things that work in the research lab, like this still need to be like matured enough so that when a person is like wearing it, they know what to expect. And we're not like under delivering.
And there's even a prioritization problem because there's so many things that could eventually be done.
Yeah, there's like so many problems. It's like we've done like really well across like being able to like prioritize across many problems. But yeah, sometimes you just have to like take time like fixing every single thing. So that's how I think our approach is gonna be.
Yeah. You end up with the path dependency and being able to optimize all the software stack before the hardware. Like how hard has it been to do it in parallel?
So you can only do so much, but you can still do a lot. So how it generally works is the entire stack is sort of modular, and you have like strong predictions around these are the kind of tech specs the underlying stack will be able to reach. And based on that understanding, what is the kind of software or like higher level up parts of the stack that you can draw. So if you have like this sensor spec that you're going to expect across these temperature ranges, these frequency ranges, how do you design a firmware that can like act adaptively to the sensor? So if the sensor is non-contact, but it still has some kind of dependency on like the distance from the scalp, how do you like have a firmware that is like adaptively able to understand where the sensor is right now, self-calibrate, and still be able to give you like very reliable decoding outcome. And then firmware can do one part of the job, and then you have like further services part of the stack, which adapt, like adding all the adaptation and all the capabilities, and then you finally have like the software that's just on the top. So all of the parts of the stack need to be like really intelligent, really smart, really adaptive, given that the product can be used in like a million ways, million settings by a million different kind of people. And it has to work well for everything.
Because there are some quite valuable contexts where even with a high calibration upfront cost, it's still quite valuable, but you're targeting like, something you just throw on your head.
Yeah. Obviously the outcome is that you want to be able to wear a cap at a price point that's like easy enough for someone to afford, and like lines up in your regular device purchases. And we definitely think that this is going to be like one of the most potent and capable device that you have. And it, as long as it feels really safe, it feels something that you can trust based on the privacy guardrails that we have, you would want to use it to replace a lot of your functions that you right now like having to force with like your phone with like a hunchback or like otherwise. But I think there's like still a lot of problems that we have to solve in terms of like how it actually feels like as a product, and we're like marketing the features and the capabilities the right way, so people don't feel that we've overpromised. And so there's like a staging pipeline here of like the features and the capabilities, where you might want to open up with like more easier to handle and more reliable features, and then scale it up to capabilities that are obviously much more ambitious. And they're like the reasons why people think that it's too transformative, but we also want to put it up in the hands of people when they're like much more reliable. Right. So
especially given your posture on like privacy and
yeah. So there's like always this tension between how fast you can like push the capabilities out from your research lab to a product that person is using, but also this whole idea on, is it safe? Is it actually private? And it's something that you can like reliably trust. If let's say we end up in like any kind of mission critical situations where like we have to get right, we don't want to be in a position where a person is expecting it to work and it doesn't, right? So we want to make sure that people use it in a way across all environments, and we can like learn from a lot of feedback before like making like the most ambitious features out in the hands of people. So that's just like the responsible and the right way to do it, and I think we'll probably follow that path.
Were there any parts along the way where you're like, were there parts that felt uncertain and that you're like, we really have to get pushed through this? This might be, did anything feel like it might prove impossible?
Oh yeah. I think right from day one, it felt like, wait, it seems like if it was possible, someone would have done it. Like, why is it not happened? Probably like people haven't done it. And like, even when you're like talking to like a lot of academics, like right in the beginning when we were talking about, hey, we've done this image decoding with fMRI and we want to do it with EEG next. And people would like laugh us out of the room. They'd be like, no, EEG is like so bad. It's like so horrible. The contact is not good. The spatial resolution is bad. And you're never going to be able to do that, until a day when we were like, okay, just like, let them do whatever they say. It doesn't matter. Let the naysayers be what they're saying. Let's just train a model, right? Like the best thing about being in the world today is that you can get some data, you can train a model, and you can prove for yourself that it works. And so I think we've always had this attitude that even though some of the smartest people in academics would probably have like huge doubts on the work that we've done, but there has been like a lot of precedent of like deep learning just coming together and giving you a very strong brittle lesson that, hey, you have been thinking about tools and methodologies and all of these things, but like just great data with like good sensors and good signal quality and like deep learning models, they create something magical. And you just have to like push through and like go past all the naysayer talk and like just go ahead and do it. And sometimes, like luckily what happened to us was that the field was so underexplored, and the gap was not that people had tried it and they found it wrong, except it was just that you had to just go ahead and try it. Someone just had to take like a high conviction bet, like put a lot of research and effort into making sure that it works, and there was like a whole green pasture waiting for it, like us to discover. So that's how we thought, and that's how we realized.
That's really exciting. I guess one thing I just asked a lot of people is like, what? I mean, you're effective. I mean, there's like a lot of ways in which you're doing a lot of models yourself. Like, what is like AI use internally at the company? Has been the availability of like amazing models been like a big part of what makes this company possible, or is it important internally? Like
everything. I think we're touching like all stacks of AI at this point. So there's definitely like, once you have like a whole AI aware organization, you just end up doing everything with AI. And I think the fact that we've been so close to the models, you understand what are some ways models do things better and what are some things that you better just do it manually. So I think that nuanced understanding, just because everyone's AI aware and like really, really deep, is like really helpful, that you can use LLMs the right way. You can like make AI agents internally in the company that are like really, really powerful. But also you can go deep and you can like actually post-train models. So I think we've had like LLMs internally that we like post-train that help us do like regular work that a company has to do, which is like completely aside from like brain reading. It's just like those capabilities exist because we have like so much like deep learning talent and like being able to like push the limits of what we can do. So yeah, we use it for everything.
Where and like what? So what like? I don't know. You want to talk? How do you think about talk about challenges you're solving next? Like what is on the roadmap?
It's a very broad roadmap, and thankfully we've had like people in the team who are like very strong leaders who can like take up like large portions of those and like have like incredibly high velocity outcome. And I think most of the companies our age are able to do like one or two things really well. Somehow we've been able to parallelize and still be able to succeed. And to your point, like we've used like AI extensively. So like even like with very, very few people in, let's say, our GTM team, we've been able to accomplish like a lot of conversations, a lot of partnerships that are on the roadmap. And even across like development, we've been like able to move so fast. So it's like, if you were like writing firmware and I would like just give the roadmap to someone who's like been in the industry for like 20, 30 years. And there'd be like, no fucking way this happened in like 6 months or 12 months. And then you're like, okay, fine. You use like these AI enabled firmware writing services. And there's obviously a tension between like writing fast and like having high performance and high security. But there's still an outcome of, okay, fine. You can like do a lot of work with these AI models that can get you to a stable enough outcome. And then you do very deep profiling of security and privacy and performance, and you get to an outcome that's pretty good for like a product that you can like serve very quickly. So that's how it looks like. We're able to like push faster than companies that were like 2 years older than us, who were like solving this problem 2 years before us, just because you can use the power of like all these deep learning things all across the stack.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you end up having to build things internally facing to like compound your own growth? And
I think one of the things that we had to build out inside was a way to profile some of the best researchers and engineers, which was like a very custom built tool that allows us to like have like a view of all the papers that have ever been published about neuroscience, non-invasive brain reading, and like all the chips that have been built out for EEG, your analog front-end engines, or your analog to digital converters, or even MCUs that you want to be using, or inference chips that you're going to be using, and like have like a very high profile understanding of, hey, these are like some of the trade-offs and missions and the problem statements that we're going for. Who are the best people that we talk to? Who are the best people that we work with? And somehow our journey from like, hey, this is like a really hard problem that nobody thinks can be solved, but these are like 3 people who've been on the edge and who have like interesting outcomes. How do we like just reach out to them and like understand how to solve that problem? So the journey of like all of this like academic distance that has to be covered, like that has like gotten so short because you can just use some of the best models. Like you can just like do deep research with like ChatGPT 5.4 and get like really good angles of like attack of the problem that are like just not available if you were like doing your own literature survey. And so you would like go through every single patent, you would go through like all of these offshoot academic work that is like not getting attention, just talk to those people and you would find like really credible angles, and then you quickly absorb them, and that helps you like move a lot faster than like even like the fastest research labs.
It sounds like there's this meta theme of just like assume it's possible and move really fast, which is like kind of what allows you to run through places people have previously kind of stopped or something like that.
Yeah, I think most of the people take consensus for what it is. And we're always like, let's assume consensus is wrong. And what are like all the angles, how we can like disprove the consensus and like move forward. And I think not every time you succeed. A lot of times consensus is right for other reasons. But it's extremely surprising for something that is like underexplored or hasn't been like fully worked through, and like new angles of attack have emerged, that you end up with like outcomes which nobody thought were possible, but then they are. Like the limits of physics is not what people get to when they're just like believing the consensus.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been really fascinating. And I'm really thankful you both came by. Is there anything specific we should be looking forward to, or announcements coming on the horizon for Sabi?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of announcements. We've barely come out of stealth. It's like just yesterday we like just had like a tweet, like 3 tweets that I shared, and we had like Wired who like covered us, and they I think asked some great questions too. But we have like so much in our story to talk about. What does Sabi mean? What is a wearable that you're going to be wearing mean? What does safe and security and privacy really mean, given that people are going to be trusting us with their thoughts? That's like such a big burden to carry, right? And we're going to fail as a company completely if like people don't trust us with their thoughts, right? And so we are like so focused on making sure that whatever we're releasing is like extremely conscious of the weight of that burden. It needs to be completely encrypted. It cannot like your thoughts cannot be on the cloud for someone else to see or watch. That just cannot be the outcome. And so a lot of work that we're doing in that direction, a lot of work that we're like going to be talking about on the technology as well and the stack and why it works. And finally, what is the product going to do? Which is like the big secret sauce that we're like kind of like going to be releasing soon enough before the launches. So we still have like some heat. We're not really like 6 months out.
Yeah.
So probably a couple of months out, we'll like talk a lot more about what the product does. And yeah, there's like so much to talk about.
Yeah. It's that's awesome. It's really, really exciting. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It was great.